Okay, this is our first video, and I want you to notice that I have the date up here in the upper right hand corner. That's what should be in your math notebook. I titled it Homework Notes because that's what we're doing right now. You're taking notes on your homework assignment. And we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting integers today. Okay, so integers are basically just numbers. You have to know the real number system, so I want you to draw this little chart. You have counting numbers, and counting numbers are things like 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to positive infinity. They're numbers that we count with. Okay, the next group in our number system are called whole numbers. And whole numbers are counting numbers, but they include the 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to positive infinity. And notice that they don't have any negatives in this category. So counting numbers are first, they don't have the 0, and then whole numbers have the 0. So counting numbers are whole numbers, but whole numbers are not counting numbers. Okay, the next group is what we call integers. And integers is where we get into those negative numbers. So we have all the negatives, like -3, -2, -1, plus all the positives. Okay, and I put the infinity signs to show you that this could go -4, -100, -5. But this isn't things like 2.5 or 2 1/4 or 2.25. There's no decimals in these. They're basically essentially whole numbers plus the negatives. Okay, so counting numbers are whole numbers, and whole numbers are integers. Counting numbers are integers as well, but integers are not counting numbers because they include this whole group of negatives that are not in our counting number set. Okay, so we're looking at adding and subtracting integers, which means that we're adding and subtracting numbers that are negatives and positives. There's several ways to do this. I'm going to scroll the paper up here so that we can make a number line. And I'm going to do the same problem probably 2 or 3 ways. Okay, and my first problem after I draw my number line, my problem is going to be this. It's going to be example 1, and my problem is 4 minus 3. And I know that you can all do this in your head. I'm using easy numbers just to make it easy, and then we'll get into some bigger numbers. So we're doing 4 minus 3. Now, actually I'm going to change it to plus. We'll do 4 plus 3. So I'm going to make my little chart here, and I'm going to throw in a 4, and I'm going to say, okay, if I'm doing 4 plus 3, I'm starting on my number line at 4, and I'm going positive 3. The positive direction on the number line is this way, and the negative direction on the number line is to the left. So the positive direction moves to the right, and the negative direction moves to the left. So since we're saying 4 plus 3, we're going to start at our 4. We're going to put a dot on our 4. And we're going to say that we're going to move 3 spaces in the positive direction. So we're adding 3. 1, 2, 3, and we end up here. Well, that's 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the number 7. So 4 plus 3 must be 7. Now, if we wanted to do subtraction, and we used example 2, and we said it was 4 minus 3, we had our number line, we would do the same thing and say that I'm starting at 4 here, but subtraction says go to the left. That's what subtraction is. It's going in this left direction. So I'm starting at 4, but I'm moving to the left 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. And let's see where I end up. 3, 2, 1. So I end up at the number 1, and I box my answer. Okay, now your worksheet and your homework notes should look exactly like my homework notes. Okay, now we're going to try one that's a little bit different. Okay, it gets a little bit harder when we say that we're starting at -4, and we are subtracting 3. So again, we're going to build our number line, and I'm just going to put some slashes on, and I'm going to say, okay, this is -4 on my number line. And if I start at -4, I put my dot here. And remember, I'm starting at -4, but I'm going left. The negative sign says go left 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. And I end up here. Well, we have to figure out what number that is. So this would be, remember, if we're counting, you have to remember which direction you're counting. So -4 is here. -3, -2, negative 1, 0 are this direction. So in this direction, you're negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, and you end up at negative 7. Now, of course, when you have hundreds and thousands, you can't actually draw a number line every time. So there is another way to do it, and I'm going to show you. We're going to take our same example, that example 3, and we're going to do it a different way. I have negative 4 minus 3, and I'm going to say that I have 4 little negatives. And what I'm really doing to them, remember that this is negative 3. You're really adding 3 little negatives to this group. And so when you add 4 little negatives and 3 little negatives, you end up with 7 negatives. Okay, let's try it with another one. Example 4 would be a negative 5 and a positive 2. And I'm going to make little slashes. I have 5 negative pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have 2 positive pieces. And I'm adding them together. And if you remember from class today, we talked about 0 pairs. This makes a 0 pair. A negative 1 and a positive 1 make a 0. So it's a 0 pair. I crossed it out. Another negative 1 and a positive 1 make a 0. So I'm left here with 3 negatives, and I write it as a negative 3. Okay? I'm going to pause the video and do a second